Welcome, welcome. Good evening, everyone. It's 8 o'clock. Thank you for joining us for the very first Lux Shop for You honors. And this is so important to me. I'm Natalie Mason. I own the company Lux Shop for You, luxury shopping for you, because I'm a luxury personal shopper and a luxury stylist and an award-winning wardrobe stylist. And this is so near and dear to me and to my heart because I know a lot of talented people, and because I know, not because I know them, but because I'm a fan of all of their work. They put their blood, sweat, and tears into their crafts. And you know what? When they always say, be the example you want to see. And if someone's not doing it, why don't you do it? If it's not there, why don't you create it? And that's what Lux Shop for You Honors is. I want to honor my people, my friends, my peers, my colleagues that are kicking it, that are taking names, that are paving the way even before we started doing it. They paved the way for us. They made it easy for us to go into places. They made it easy for it to be acceptable to say, hey, let me hire her, him, or whoever. It's because of people like you, Keith, why we can actually walk through those doors. Why we could say, I want to get my, work for a campaign. I want to get behind a fashion show. I could see myself here, there, and everywhere. And believe you me, it's just those little seeds that you've been through and you don't realize, and a lot of people don't realize what they're doing and how their journey goes. But it's because of what you did and what you've been through made it easy for people like me. So thank you.
You're welcome. That's so amazing and wonderful to hear. I'm glad that I was able to give back to people behind us coming up that are, they want the idea that they can see me and believe that they can do it too. That's a beautiful thing. It's a blessing.
Thank you. But in the beginning, I bet you didn't feel like it when you're going through whatever you're going through and doing it. It doesn't.
I just loved image making so much that I was going to do it regardless. I was going to do it whether nobody took notice. I was going to do it anyway. And I totally got in where I fit in. I did a lot of that. And I also did this thing that I heard Issa Rae actually give life to this idea. She says that you don't always like network up, but you network laterally. You work with your peers who are also coming up and are thirsty for similar things, and you end up growing together. And you find as you become, established and or seniors in the game, you realize, oh wow, we're here. I remember back when we were, it's funny because I actually just the other day, I think Saturday, I was in the studio photographing a jazz trumpeter, Sarita Thompson. And the stylist on the set was Susan Moses. Actually, everybody in the set I go way back with, but in particular, Susan Moses was on the set. And at one point, we're shooting Sarita and her bandmate. And I turned to Susan, I'm like, this is so deja vu. Like, I remember us in the studio on Broadway, like after work, shooting like a duo similar to this, and you were styling it. Like, we totally come full circle, I some of us who've been go back with me, remember 568 Broadway, where I was working at a photo studio and I would do my own thing evenings and weekends. And so, people like Sam Fine and Oscar James, those were their first tests. With
legendary.
We were growing with, together in that space. So
yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
How does it feel seeing there? It's crazy because you're growing up with these people, but then now all of you are legends. All of you.
Yeah, it's fun. And the fun part is sort of like let's say somebody like June Ambrose. So right. I remember working with her way back. And what I love about it is you see the consistent authenticity, like that vivacious personality that she has. She's always been that person. She was that person way back before, any of us had cell phones, because there were no cell phones, let alone social media. So
right,
just fun. And I like sharing those stories with the young artists of today because I'm excited for them for that, like to see how they're coming up. And I'm real proud of what particularly are people of color, you know, the women and the men who are young men who are and young women who are doing their thing out here. They're doing beautiful work, you know, and it's just such a source of pride.
It is, and you should be very proud of everything. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done your research, I would like to be the one to tell you that the lovely Keith Major has over 30 years, over 30 plus years, by the way,
Right.
of being, having a stellar reputation in uh, commercial photography, editorial photography, fashion campaigns, fashion shows, working in entertainment. He is the one that our favorites call. Our favorites being Iman, Tyra, Kevin Hart. We even have the Iris Apfel that he worked with, Palmolive campaigns, Sony. The list goes on and on. Harry Belafonte. The list keeps getting crazier. I'll say Alicia Keys, and I'll say, Queen Latifah. And when I keep rolling these names off your list, off my tongue, you're gonna be like, and it goes further with Marsalis, and it's endless because he is true to his craft. He practices what he believes in. He does whatever he does with his lenses and creates magic. Keith, can you speak more about that magic?
It's interesting. You kind of grow in photography, and the first thing you learn is how amazing the eye is. That's the first lesson when you first pick up a camera. That you find out how amazing God is. But one of the things, the gifts that I believe that I have is even when I'm not taking pictures, I see people at their best. Like when I look out of my eyes, everyone is beautiful. Like I actually see this before I even pick up a camera. So every individual that I see, and it's funny because I've been challenged with that too. Like, no, you can't possibly believe that. And I'm like, listen, that's what I see. I never believed in the word ugly. In fact, I was once on the street and I saw a person that had a deformity that might be described by someone as grotesque. And I found myself staring and seeing and imagining like how I would photograph this person to show that, because I was also impressed at how she carried herself. She was above and beyond her deformity. It was like she was just as human as the rest of us. And I could see that energy and that beauty. And so I've been fortunate enough to be able to translate that in the pictures that I take of people.
Because you're a maestro of the lens. You're an amazing maestro of the lens. Oh my gosh. So I'd like to thank you for the countless contributions, as I said before. And one question that came up was, how old were you when you knew that you wanted to be a photographer?
I started fairly young. I started wanting to be an artist, but my draftsman skills were frustrating because I wasn't the best. I could never draw as well as I'd like. And to shorten the story, serendipitously, I ended up in a photo class because the art classes were too full. I used to go to Brooklyn Museum and Pratt Institute after school and on the weekends. There was an art program because I told my dad after my first day of kindergarten that I wanted to be an artist. I remember the conversation. I remember the finger painting. Yeah. And so my journey kind of started there, and I kind of found my way to photography. And being in the darkroom and watching the print come up in Developer, I was hooked. And we're not even in the darkroom anymore, but that little bit, I got hooked. And so I started to pick up the camera, and then it was very interesting to see how to develop film and how to capture light and how when you photograph things, it didn't quite look like they did to the eye, and how do I work that math out, and it just was always something that I enjoyed. And I just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. But I was about 12. I was about 12 when I first said, I'm going to do this, and had a camera, got a camera for Christmas.
Oh my gosh. So there began earlier. So it looks like we're starting our slideshow.
Yeah, this slide is interesting. So of course, this is me, but there's a story behind this one. That chair that I'm sitting in, that animal print chair, was commissioned by Tina Knowles. I was shooting Beyonce's mom
Wow.
one day after we were working for a fashion line they had, the House of Darion, and she wanted to do a hero shot in that chair. And
Yeah.
I decided, I think it was after the shoot, I asked my assistant to get a portrait of me. I think I needed it for something. I'm like, well, just get a portrait of me in the chair. So this is in my old studio. But I do remember the Tina Knowles thing because, she's Beyonce's mom. And I
Right.
kind of went back with them. I had done, when they were Destiny's Child, we had done a hair ad for Soft, I think it was for, I don't remember the brand, but we did a hair ad with Destiny's Child. And that's how I met the family. And through the years, we had worked together on a variety of projects. And so I think I got a chance to see a video of the session somebody did behind the scenes. And one day, as social media would be, Beyonce was had a little collage of her mom, and giving her mom thanks and praises. And part of that collage was a video of that session in my old studio. I was pretty excited to see that. So, yeah.
That's bananas. Are you kidding me? I live for juicy stories like this. How about
Yeah.
this photo? What were you thinking when you shot it? What was your inspiration?
Oh, you know what? The art direction and the concept was something that Tyra and her team came up with.
Hmm.
And it's funny, this was for Top Model, America's Next Top Model. And I'd seen Tyra at a party long before this happened. I think it was a Essence party. And we were talking, and she says, do you want to be on Top Model? I'm like, yeah, sure, of course.
Right.
And she says, what would you like to do, fashion or beauty? And I told her beauty. The reason I chose beauty was it's my favorite thing to do because it combines sort of fashion and style and portraiture.
True.
The other thing is I think I do it well. And so I would be able to represent myself well on television. But one of the other big reasons was I had seen Top Model and the fashion shoots were so aggressive. And I would always tell the same joke that I didn't want to find myself hanging from a helicopter in the Arctic trying to get a shot. So I figured if I chose beauty, they couldn't go too crazy.
Right.
And so yeah, and so she told me what they were going to do, that they were going to paint faces and stuff, and I just went into my bag of this is the kind of beauty that I want to do in this situation, and I'm very proud of this. So that shot was, this girl was the winner of that particular contest, and then I got a chance to be a guest judge as well, so I had my little TV moment on America's Next Top Model.
You sure did. Unforgettable, by the way.
Yeah.
Hats off to you.
Yeah.
We have another photo coming on your slide. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah,
portrait.
this is my good queen sister, Hadia Barbell. She's among many things, I'm going to say, a hair artist, but Hadia does a lot of things.
Right.
And she made that hair piece, she calls them crowns. And so she's wearing a crown of her construction of natural hair. And we're kind of in between shots. And she was kind of crouching and doing this sort of thing. And I just kind of snapped the photo because we were actually doing other stuff. But she was, I guess at that moment, she was collecting herself and meditating. And I got the photograph. And it's been a popular photograph for both of us. I think what works in it is not only is the natural hair friendly to, African-American folks of color or people that have that kind of hair. I think that because she's holding herself and you don't see face, people can identify with it. You almost get into the emotion and you kind of can picture yourself in that space.
Absolutely. Very powerful.
Yeah.
Incoming.
Oh, this was so cool. This was actually, I shot this and I just found out you're a Toronto native.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I shot this in Toronto.
You did not shoot this in my
I
home.
shot this in Toronto. They happened to be, it was a film festival.
Yeah.
And the Secret Life of Bees movie happened to be featured at the film festival in Toronto.
Yeah.
And so it just made sense from a production point of view for this cover to stage it in Toronto because all of the cast would be there.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, we were in a big studio in Toronto and this was just just a wonderful moment with Jennifer Hudson, Queen Latifah, and Alicia Keys, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great day. And you can see on their faces, they're really having fun, you know.
You could see the excitement just oozing out of them. Like, you captured it perfectly.
Yeah, I try. You know, my sets are not stuffy.
Right.
They're not pretentious.
Never.
You know, I like to have fun. I remember the one of the funnest parts of this shoot was I had a remix of Brandy's "I Want to Be Down" that has the rap on it, and Queen Latifah literally walked into the room when her part came on.
Stop.
And to see her like groove to her own stuff, she's like, "Hey," you know, it was like, that was cool. So yeah, it was a cool moment.
That's what I wanted to say too. Listen, you have a playlist unlike no other. So not only are you a dope photographer, but your creativity is on so many levels. Your music playlist, the way you make people feel on set, I'll never forget the mood that you set on set, because it makes all of us just get into it. So
Yeah.
I need to just chime in on that.
You know, I think I had the good fortune of being raised during that sort of like 70s soul music era. And that just sort of like sets you up for, you know, feel good music. And so, you know, it's sort of like I want to bring my best days to the set and live that. You know, it's almost like this is like a family gathering, you know. I remember like we had in my family, and you know, they'd say, "Oh, let's go out to the island." You know, we'd hop in our car in Brooklyn and go out to Jamaica, Queens, and some little row house, and they were proud of their row house, you know. And I'm like, this ain't the island, this is Jamaica, Queens. But anyway, we'd go to Uncle Sammy's house, and it was just so much love in there, and you know, with the folks laughing and playing music and eating good food, and I just try to bring that energy along with me to a photo shoot.
That you do. So I do have a question for you from Vivian Sessoms, who from our set that we were on.
Yeah.
Music, yes. When I was wearing the combat boots, patent leather. She asked what qualities make for good subject or shoot. And she said, by the way, her most favorite shoot and best shoots have all been with Keith.
Oh, thank you, Vivian. Hey, Viv. I want people to be themselves. So it's sort of like, if there's a quality that I'm looking for, it's relax. They're just pictures. There are so many other things in life that are more intense and more important, that this should be easy for you. Breathe and just be yourself. You're in the room and being photographed because you have something to give and something to offer. And if you can find that place where you're just relaxed, I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to make sure you look good, because I don't want somebody to say, who shot this, because it didn't look right, you know? Right. And again, because I see people at their best, I can see it. I can see, you know, that you're fine and that you look good, and we can get a great photograph, you know? So I look for confidence and calm. And if I don't see it, I try to foster it.
You're awesome. I have a question from a student. His name is David Bellows. He's a photographer from Gordon College Center for Entrepreneurship. And his question is, what's one of the most challenging things you've ever faced being a full-time photographer in this day and age?
Relevance. As you age, you become less a part of the current narrative. And so that has been challenging. The first challenge was pivoting from film and analog world to digital and online world. It's a big challenge. It was very difficult to go from, let's put it this way. In 1996, in order to see my work, either you had to look in a magazine, you wanted to look at my portfolio, you'd have to find your way to me or to my agent. And you'd have to do some research. It wasn't available easily. And so the process alone kind of vetted people. And so just to see my portfolio took work. That was that world. This world, I'm a click away. Anybody in this panel right now can click on my website and see everything. You know, you can go online and find out where I live. You know,
That's
it's
a thing.
it's a
That's a
different
thing.
world. And so having to get used to that, because there were moments where a lot of us older photographers had to let go, because I remember once seeing something online being used, and I'm like, wow, you know, I used to get paid for this. I used to get paid a certain healthy amount of money for this. And
Right.
now it becomes, you know, there are some things that you have to give away for free or you're not even going to be seen. So that part has been interesting. However, I do like that it's easier for people to share. I like that it's easier for everyone to have access to everyone else, and that the curtain has been lifted in many ways. I think it's more, at the end of the day, it's better. I think it's more democratic.
There we go. We have, hoping she's on. We have a question from Petra Slinkard. She's the fashion textiles curator from PB Essex Museum, and she's going to ask a live question if she's on. Pete,
Hey,
is she on?
Petra.
I don't see her.
That's okay. We have another question. We have Theo Tyson. She's a curator at Boston Athenaeum. She has just an amazing craft for fashion and a vetted resume for fashion. So can we cue Theo Tyson in?
Theo is on.
Perfect. Welcome to the chat, Theo.
Hello, Theo.
Oh, it's on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Hello.
Wonderful. Hello.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
I am doing very well. I am glad I'm able to be here. I'm sure as everyone knows, it seems we're much busier now these days instead of not so busy being at home. So
Right, that's true.
one of the things, and it's kind of already been addressed already, but I would love it, Keith, if you would talk a little bit more about that transition from analog to digital and kind of what that means also to, because of that instantaneous nature, you're able to see immediately what you've done versus before you kind of had to commit to that photo because you clicked and you didn't see it for days
Yeah,
or weeks
yeah,
later.
yeah.
So I would just love to hear how that kind of maybe even changed your
My approach.
approach to different fashion shoots, and did it make them more or less
It was a
authentic, engaging?
journey. It was a journey. At first, it was, wow, this is coming. What am I gonna do? um, and my first thought was, I knew photo history, and I knew that there was a time before film. So if you're a photographer before film, you were an alchemist. You were mixing your own light sensitive material, and you were coating it on what they would call wet plates. It was a big process. And so I thought to myself, imagine telling somebody who does that, okay, now we're gonna shoot on plastic provided by another party. I can imagine that the purists then were like, I'm not doing that. Just like, there were people who didn't want to go to digital from film. But for me, I wanted to continue to work, and I saw where it was going. And because I knew this history, I'm like, well, if those guys can switch from wet plates to film, I can switch from film to digital. So that's what got me on the road. And then I started working with different digital services just to learn the language. And my process was, I was still shooting film on lots of jobs. And so I decided, okay, when you shoot a test, because I've always shot my own stuff, particularly lots of fashion tests. And I said to myself, when you do a fashion test, just shoot it digital so you can get familiar with it. And then it was a process over time. Then it's sort of like on the commercial side, what was happening was once the advertising people saw that they could see it immediately, that's all they wanted. And so you had to begin to hire the digital tech and have the laptop because you weren't going to shoot any ads on film. And then you had the sort of like what we used to call lunch money jobs. It would be smaller gigs, which some photographers shun. I always do them because I learn by doing. And I love when the stakes are not as high and I have more chances to take chances, because then I can use the lessons learned there in the bigger jobs. So anyway, the smaller jobs, they wanted digital, and the advertisers wanted digital. But in the middle were the magazines and the record companies, they were still doing film. And it's almost became like this weird thing where film started shrinking and, everybody met in the middle eventually and digital. I rode the wave. At first it was difficult because I had math connected to how I shot film. Film was very technical and very nuanced. And there were lots of things that I did that I had to undo. And I would say for a few years, I struggled with digital, and I worked, but it wasn't like I was really getting the results I wanted. And then after a couple of years, I started to figure out the differences and the nuances of digital as opposed to film, and how I can get the look that I wanted in digital. And I'm a firm believer in moving forward. I believe in accepting change. And I also believe in digital because it's less toxic. There aren't as many toxic chemicals going into the water and the oceans from film processing stuff. Film itself is gelatin based. If you're a vegan and you're one of those vegans who aren't into leather, into animal products, film has an animal product component to it. And so I'm one of the few old heads who will argue with the young kids who are into film as a fad, or they want the experience of film. I don't think it's necessary. I just don't think, Now, I like the idea of the instantaneousness of it, because it used to I watched things, and at first it was frightening, because I watched things that used to take years to learn, things that used to take years to master, reduced to a moment. And that was mind blowing. Because you didn't have all those layers, because, you'd shoot film, it's in that dark box. I have a few pictures in my head that I knew were great, but I had to make sure that the processing was right and all that other technical stuff. You could ruin that great shot by not having your film processed right, by not having a good print. A lot of those layers have been removed and you see the image right away. And it's funny, I remember I saw some kid, because everyone starts out as a lousy photographer. It's a marathon. It takes time to learn how to do it well. And I remember seeing some kid doing a shot, and I could see, knowing what I know, that it was going to be horrible. I saw him on the street, and I just said, well, at least now he can see right away that this isn't going to work, as opposed to having to spend money and time and find out next week that, it didn't work. I hope that answers the question.
It absolutely does. And I appreciate one of the things that I'm a fan of film and analog. And one of the reasons that I struggle with it is because of the effects on the environment. I'm really happy that you pointed that out.
Yeah, I think in the end, I think the image is more important than the tools. The tools are just a means to get there. But
that's a beautiful soundbite for students, Keith.
Yeah, but your subjects and your themes, that's really what it's about. It's more, all of the weight should be there. What's the story you're telling? How are you telling that story? Because you're reaching people that they're not looking for what camera you shot or, how you did it. That's for us photographers. But for the wider viewing audience, what are you showing? What are you talking about? How is this affecting my life? How is this helping my life? Yeah, somebody said I didn't know film. Yeah, film is a gelatin base. Yep.
You have a lot of your chat room is jumping. Someone asked, "What are your thoughts of the mirrorless cam?" BPP asked, "What are your thoughts of the mirrorless cameras that are becoming more common?"
I am blown away by the leap forward in technology in terms of ISO and speed. So a lot of the mirrorless cameras have this number that I just still am trying to wrap my mind around. I mean, when I was younger, we were shooting, the fastest film might be 800 ISO, and it was grainy, and you had to deal with what it was. And I swear, I think I heard some crazy number like 6,400, or And I'm like, huh? Like, it's mind boggling. I think I used the mirrorless camera on a job where I needed to be quiet on a film set.
Okay.
And you can make the camera quiet, and it works. It's just magic. And so I'm one that's not, as much as I loved shooting film, and I still have a 4x5 camera, I still have a Hasselblad, I still have an RZ. I like tinkering with the new stuff. And I think embracing change and modernism, coupled with, you want to have the knowledge of what came before. And when you marry the two together, I think that's when you really, sing.
Okay. Now we have a live question from Miss Belinda Monroe Gardner, co-founder of Jazz Houston. Can
Okay.
we cue her in?
Let's do that. Let's put up Kevin Hart while we're waiting, because I just like looking at that.
Yeah, let's post him.
Okay, let's cue Belinda in. Hello, Belinda.
Hi, Mr. Major, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Good. We actually have a friend in common, Carlton Jones.
Carlton. Carlton's an angel.
Yes, he is. He was my neighbor in New York, in Harlem.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
I've seen you before. You look familiar.
Yes. Yeah, we have.
I know that.
Actually, Vivian had reached out to me, and when she was trying to find some photographers, and I had asked Carlton, I was like, Vivian, my friend, she's looking for a photographer and she's stuck and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, you've got to send her to Keith. You've got to send her to Keith. So.
Oh, so you're the reason I'm in this room now.
Circle, look, full circle. That's how we get united.
Look at that.
Full circle.
Yeah.
So I have a question. As a musician myself, what is your process when dealing with musicians versus models or actors when shooting?
Oh, that's a good question. Models are supposed to model. And so when you're shooting a model, they're going to pose, they're going to do things. We might have a conversation about what we're doing. I might show them what we're doing, but I expect them to be an artist who's going to help make the picture. And a really good model, you tend to want to be ready to capture what they're going to do.
Okay.
I also use my fashion and modeling stuff to sort of work things out, lighting ideas, lens ideas, image making ideas. And then I bring that to the other work. So if I'm shooting a musician, I might use a technique that I learned in my fashion, but I don't expect the musicians to pose per se. So my process has been a combination of, you may not even notice it, but I've been watching your mannerisms and I'm directing you back into something I saw you do that looked nice.
Okay.
Or I might go to a few go-to poses to get you started. I also very, very much try to relax you, because everybody has that thing. Everybody has their beauty, and it comes in that space where you're relaxed and confident. And so I try to relax my subjects. Sometimes they might just start laughing at me because I can be silly, and that's cool. We'll use that. And particularly with musicians, if they're just comfortable in being themselves, you're going to get great stuff, because their creativity is very, very fluid. And it's just a matter of allowing them to be that. Actors is a bit trickier, because there's a strangeness about the still photograph that is a little bit counter to what they do, because a fine actor tries to really live in a moment. They're trying to recreate living emotions, and something about still photography kind of shakes that up. So oddly enough, some actors are really good at taking their photographs, but many actors struggle with pictures until they get to that place where they have decided, okay, this is what I need to do. But again, for me, it becomes trying to relax them and have a conversation about being relaxed and being yourself. And also with an actor, you know, they're going to want to, you know, this is what I want to show. This is my good side, that sort of thing. So you have to have that kind of conversation. And then when it's someone who's not an actor, not a celebrity, or just you know, a person that, you know, I might be photographing a lawyer or a doctor. It's the same thing. You just try to relax them and get them to be themselves. Everybody has that day where you look in the mirror and you really like the way you look, you know? And I want to capture that. I want to recreate that moment for you.
Okay.
Belinda, Keith and I were talking earlier before we started filming about jazz at Lincoln Center. Belinda actually sang with jazz at Lincoln Center before too, and her husband Vincent Gardner is lead trombonist at jazz at Lincoln Center. And
so I may have photographed him because I photographed the orchestra in, I think it was like early 2000s, late 90s.
When did you photograph them?
My biggest billboard was Jazz at Lincoln Center. I photographed the orchestra and I photographed Wynton. And my biggest billboard was at a real. Yeah. How you doing?
How you doing, man?
Were you in that studio? We were in Milk Studios at 15th Street. Everybody was there. It was a big orchestra. We even had the piano up in there.
Yeah, I remember that, man. Like
4
years ago, 5 years ago.
Yep. While ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
While ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my biggest billboards was that. I have a photograph of Wynton that was like stories high for the opening of the new Jazz at Lincoln Center. That was
the
new Jazz at Lincoln
we
Center.
took pictures in the blue suits.
Yeah.
Or was it for the opening of the Jazz?
It was for the opening. That was a while ago.
Yeah, there's one shot of Wynton by himself. He's kind of leaning back in almost a Miles Davis profile, head to toe. I don't think we collected that shot here, but that was really awesome. You know, it's still exciting to see your work published and in print.
Yeah.
Right.
And in fact, one of my students told me that they had a photograph, one of the photographs from that session of Wynton, in one of their cases or famous, you know, notable Black people. And it was my photo, you know. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool,
That's
man.
awesome.
Very cool, man.
Yeah, it's lovely to be able to work with our people, and I love music. I love jazz, and it's just a blessing to be in the room with you guys. Because for me, in particular for me, I feel like, you know, our Black musicians are some of our greatest kings and queens. You know, like what they do and what they've contributed to the planet. It's really important.
Right.
I feel grateful just to be a part of that.
It is. So let us know when you're coming to Houston.
Yeah, definitely.
I will. I was in Houston once for a job. I photographed a hip hop artist named Slim Thug.
Slim Thug.
Yeah.
Okay.
Years
Okay.
ago on XXL magazine, which was great because his mom cooked us some good Southern food.
Well, don't worry. This is the cook right here, the chef.
Yeah,
right here.
she threw down for us. And
I'm the cook. He's the chef. So.
Yes. You know, for a kid from Brooklyn, man, that's heaven. Like, good food.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Wow.
That'll be a nice collab. I'd like to see it. Get me over there to style the wardrobe. Let's go.
That's right. Because we have an orchestra, so.
Yes.
15 musicians.
What is this question here? I love the photo with the crown. Oh yeah, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, what is that? Let's see. I love these questions.
Pleasure meeting you, brother. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, man.
We'll soon again.
For sure. I know I'll see you guys again.
Definitely.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So there's no more questions.
There's one here. Who are some of your most favorite people you photographed? Let's I think Kevin Hart was fun because I liked that I executed what I wanted to do. We had a great team. You know, the art direction going in was wonderful. The magazine had a great concept. I love working with Mario Bobo and her folks. And I was determined to photograph Kevin as sort of the, not the funny little guy, but more like sexy leading man. And so I'm really pleased with the outcome because I was able to really make that happen in his photographs.
And that you did. He looks amazing. He does look like a sex symbol. So you captured it perfectly.
Oh, I see a question here. What advice do you have for up and coming photographers? I would say keep shooting. You learn the most by taking pictures. You learn more by taking pictures than from anything else. The process itself is full of lessons. Also, I think it's important to study other photographers, to study particularly the photography that you're drawn to, that you like. That will add colors to your palette when you've seen what other people are doing and what you're drawn to. I think you have to respect the craft. Understand that it's a marathon, and you don't always get the results overnight. It's not an overnight success kind of medium. It's the kind of medium where you learn over time. I remember several years ago, I was looking at the work of the guy I apprenticed under, Anthony Barboza. I was going through some of his work. I happened to stumble down into a place online where I was able to see some of the things he had been working on. And I'm like, wow, like, and I was talking to him. I said, man, it looks like I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, and he goes, well, you know, I've got like 30 years on you, of course. I'm like, oh yeah, right. You know, so it's definitely a marathon kind of thing. And I like where I sit nowadays because I'm able to impart knowledge to younger photographers, and it's a really wonderful thing. And the coolest part about it is I tell this story before, there's this saying, I watch a lot of sports, which is weird to a lot of my creative friends because a lot of creative people aren't into sports, but I am. And I was watching a football game, the Packers back in the day, and somebody goes, Brett Favre has forgotten more about football than this kid knows. And I'm like, oh, that sounds cool, but that's just some saying. It doesn't mean anything. Until I started mentoring and teaching, and you know, young photographers would ask me questions, and I'd have this recall about something I completely forgot about. And I'm like, wow, I guess that saying really is something. I actually know more about photography. I've forgotten more about photography than this person knows. Like, but they'll ask me a question and something I just hadn't thought about in years will just pop up. And I'm like, oh, you know, da 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 da, you know. I love that part, man. I love sharing the information and teaching, especially with today's youth, because they're so good at what they do. They're so technically astute, and they're so eager and free and fresh in their ideas. And so it's just like really nice to share information with them.
I'm sure it's gratifying.
It really is. I didn't know until I started doing it. It's really gratifying.
Yeah. Look at this, Keith. You have another question. Look at that. Hey, Keith, Brian Pierce. Hey, Brian.
What's up, Brian?
Pleasure to listen to you. Great advice. Too often I see people who want instant success and gratification.
Yeah, unfortunately, photography doesn't really, I mean, and here's the thing about creativity in general, in all of the arts. At the very best, it's a process and it's a marathon. And the other thing that happens is you grow. And so the images or the music or the things that you did in the past, very often you've outgrown, or what you used to like is no longer impressive to you, and you want to continue to get better. And you also have to be careful because there's this space where you feel like you're not good enough, or you don't like the images, or maybe as a musician, you don't like the music. But you've got to have people that you can trust to share the stuff with, or sometimes you just have to show it anyway and see what kind of feedback you're getting, because that doubt or that thing where it's like, oh, I'm not sure if I like this, really to me is there for you to get better. And you have to be careful not to confuse that muscle of this could be better with I need to not do this. You know, sometimes you still have to push forward and do your thing, and grow with it. Yeah, but instant gratification, and it can, every once in a while you'll do something and it's dope and you really, really love it, and you'll love it forever. I've certainly had those things, but it's also fleeting. You know, I'm still about the next thing. Like, you know, what am I going to shoot next? You know, I'm already feeling like I've seen all this stuff before. I got to do something else. And you got to get used to that. Like, I've got to look at this photograph again. You know?
Oh man, so that's what it feels like. You have to look at the photograph again.
You know, it's cool. I like it, but it's sort of like I've gotten used to having to share that. But I'm really curious about what am I going to do next? What's next? You know? Yeah.
Do we have any more? No.
Let's look at some more pictures.
Yeah, let's see more pictures.
So as you can see there, Kevin is looking very regal and very handsome, manly, and powerful. And I wanted him to look like a leading man. I didn't want him to look like a funny little guy.
Right.
And I'm very proud of that. And
How'd you get that smoke?
and it was a wonderful set. Somebody earlier said when we were setting up, we had talked about the color. I used this, there's a Profoto strobe light. It's kind of a strip light. It's not some people will think it's a strip softbox, for those of us who know, but it's not the strip softbox. It's actually, there's a strip tube that has a similar look to me. It looks similar to the Kino Flows and the LEDs, but it's a strobe and it's faster. And so also what I did was I put a gel on that strip light. I like using the dark blue gels on brown skin because it just works. And so, you know, it set a mood here. And then I had a couple of lights on the side with red gels, and we had a smoke machine, and we also had a cigar, which he used as a prop. He doesn't smoke cigars. And he definitely made a point to tell his son who was on set, like, look, I'm just doing this for the prop. I am not endorsing smoking. I don't want you to do either, which was kind of a funny moment. Kevin Hart can be funny without even trying. You know.
I'm glad he put that message out there too, because like he said, it's something that he does.
Yeah. Yeah, it came back to bite me though, because I have this really dope photograph of him in like a chair holding a cigar. It's crazy, it's sick. And Cigar Aficionado wanted to use it for a cover, and his people are like, nope.
Oh, you have another. Oh, okay, let's do Iris and then I'll go to the other questions.
Oh yeah, this one. I have 2 images embedded in my brain because my camera wasn't ready, film photography. Do you have any images that you didn't capture? You know what? I have images that I didn't capture all day, every day. I always tell people that the best images that I've ever seen have been from everyday life that are impossible to capture. It's almost like I'm waiting for a technology where there's a chip in my head where I can just record what I see that I like and compose it the way I want, without the use of the camera, but with the use of the eye, because there's nothing like what I see visually in real life. And so I have more pictures that I've never taken than you can't even quantify it, you know, particularly if I go out. Like if I'm out hanging out in any kind of nightlife situation, the images are just off the charts, you know. And I have more joy from the things I see out of my eyes than I do from even taking the pictures, because, you know, God is insane with it. Like it's just, you know, the mastery of the visual language that the creator has given us is unfathomable, and I love it.
Oh wow, Keith, I'm getting private messages too. Keith, you have people coming from everywhere. Oh my gosh. Let me try to scroll this down. You could read the other one, but I'm going to scroll one down that I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, you can put Iris back up,
Yeah,
Pete.
put Iris up.
Oh, who are some of the old school photographers that inspired you? Well, firstly, the guy I assisted, Anthony Barboza, and I would say to everybody, especially young photographers, it's invaluable to assist. And I know that there's a whole generation of folk who want to do it and they jump right in. And that's good if you can do that, if you have that kind of skill and that mastery. But I learned and I went to school for photography, which you don't necessarily have to do, but you have to be schooled in some way, shape, form, or fashion, whether you do it on your own or whether you have instruction. But I went to school. I went to the High School of Art and Design. I went to RIT. But when I started assisting Tony, I would say I learned probably more in 4 weeks than I learned in 4 years of college, just watching a professional work. It's a magic elixir. And here's the best analogy I can give. I met this sister at an event, and we were talking, and she's like, I want to be a caterer, and I don't know how to start. And, you know, she was really bright and together. And I said to her, look, I'm like, the kind of person you are, this is what you do. You go work for someone who's doing what you want to do. Because with your strength and knowledge and drive, 1 year with that caterer, then you can go open your own business. You will learn, not only will you learn what to do, sometimes you learn what not to do or what you would not do. And it's invaluable. So I say to the young people who have flipped the tables and kind of thrown out the apprentice process will only make you stronger. Do not discount it. When we were coming up, we were told you have to go do this. So yes, I would have to go get his beer. I would have to go get the cold sesame noodles, you know? And I knew photographers are like, I'm not doing that. And all the ones who weren't doing that are no longer working. So it's a real thing, you know, it helps.
Okay, what words of encouragement and inspiration? Oh, there goes Iris. I'm just still gonna read this. What words of encouragement and inspiration can you give up to up and coming photographers who may be despondent right now during the pandemic?
Oh, well, there's certainly the virtual shooting, which poses probably the greatest challenge and innovation that I've seen, where you're doing FaceTime shooting.
Right.
I think that you have to push forward in that area if you're an up-and-coming photographer and you can't get out because of the pandemic. I think you can use the time also to study the photography that's come before you, so you have a working knowledge of how these things work. See, because here's the thing, let's say you get your dream job and you're doing a Vogue cover. The art director might ask you to shoot in a particular aesthetic. And if you're not well-versed in, you know, the history of art or the history of photography, they might be talking about something you have no idea. You know, you have no idea what they're talking about, and that can set you back. You may not get hired again. They may hire somebody else. You may not be right for the job because your knowledge is limited. You want to be able to take in as much as you can. But I say shoot. Don't let anything stop you from taking pictures. Always take pictures. Tell your own story. It counts and it matters. And here's how it matters. Because I always did my own thing all the time, after work, on the weekends, what I learned is when I started to actually work, that if a problem arose on let's say on a big budget ad job, I already had been through that problem, you know, 10 at night on a $50 shoot or 10 at night on a free shoot. And I already figured all that out. So when it counted, I was already ready. You know, I didn't have to learn on the fly because I was already flying.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's some sound advice. You already know.
Yeah, it's really about you taking pictures. Oh, somebody said here, of all the pictures you've taken, which one is the one that made you feel like you arrived? I never, ever believed in the arriving thing. However, I did have a week where I felt like I arrived. I had a week when I used to hustle after work and weekends for years. Even my earlier career where I was known as a freelance photographer, I actually had a 9-to-5 that allowed me to shoot in the space on work days, take off and fly around the country, you know, to do things. I actually had a job. But it was the kind of thing that I was able to work around it and make it work. But then I decided that's another long story, but I had to quit the job. But I ended up staying at the studio, and instead of being paid, now I'm paying rent to use the studio and use the office. And the week that I decided to quit, I got a gig. One gig was with Iman, and then the next couple of days it was going to be Patti LaBelle.
What?
So that made me feel, that was sort of an arrival kind of feeling, because it was like, I just quit my job and the universe is like, dope, Nah, let me give you this, you know? So yeah, that happens. That can happen, but it's still a marathon. You know, there's no real turn where you arrive. It's just sort of like you grow and you keep building these blocks. And as you build, it gets better. You know, even before I was working with celebrities and models, I remember that I noticed that every year the jobs got a little better. Every year the photographs got a little better. You know, it was a process. And it's funny because when you're first starting, you know, I'm photographing musicians, and I noticed that there became this point where, because I would photograph music and I would hate the music, but I do my best. And all these new musicians, and not all of it was good. And then all of a sudden I started to photograph people, and I'm like, wow, all the music is good now. So I must be getting better because now I'm in the room with better musicians. Like now everybody's like got dope stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I was kind of janky like that music I was photographing back then. You know, so now I'm better. So yeah, yeah, it's crazy, but yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Crazy.
hilarious! Absolutely. Look at all of that, Keith. Look at the love you're getting.
I love you all.
Holy smokes. Pete, can we get that iris shot, please? Talk to us
Awesome.
about
Oh yeah, this was really exciting because she's this legendary fashionista, you know, and she's like, at the time, I believe Iris was like 94, maybe she's 92. But anyway, it was interesting because, you know, I get in there and she's got this apartment on Park Avenue, and, you know, but what I liked about that day was I was like, I'm in here with a woman that's like in her 90s in fashion, which means that she's almost had a lifetime of experience that's like light years ahead of me. And I realized that I can use this to my advantage. Like, so I would set up a shot and I'd be like, what do you think? You know, and she's like, oh, I like this, or I didn't. Because I leaned on her to get, because I knew, I'm like, if I just lean on her, I'll get, you know, I'll be able to draw some inspiration from her and some guidance, and, you know, I'll have dope photos. And that's what happened. And it's funny because conversely, the stylist on set was trying to get her to, you know, wear her styles or do other things, and they were kind of having a battle. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you fighting with her? Like, you know, we're like kids compared to her. And it's just like, I'm not trying to tell her what to do. I'm going to be listening, you know? And like, and look at the style. Like, how are you going to come for that? These are her clothes, what she put on in her place.
Yes.
You know, like.
And this is what makes us attracted to her, because she's her. So
Exactly.
Themselves.
And sometimes you got to fall back. Like sometimes it's not about you and your ego. And my process has helped me with that because I do my own work on my time. Right. And that has always allowed me to walk into a room and do the job at hand. Because, you know, if I want to do something, you know, I always tell this one story. I had this stylist once, we're photographing a pastor, woman, mid-60s, 5'2", size 18, wonderful woman. But she's a pastor and she's, you know, older Black woman.
Yeah.
And the guy puts her in a gown with a backless dress with the back out. Was not flattering for her. And then he's telling me, shoot the back of the dress, shoot the back of the dress. And I pull him aside and I go, listen, what we should be doing here today is doing what we can to flatter her where she is.
Correct.
That dress that you want to show the back of, we need to do that another day with some 16 or 19-year-old who's 5'10", who could wear this, and we could show the back of the dress because we're just showing the dress. Right. But this is the pastor of a church. First of all, this backless dress is not what they're about. And second of all, that backless dress is not flattering on her. And see, what I realized in that moment is that stylist was only doing work. And he hadn't figured out that he wanted to do something creative, but you can't always be creative on somebody else's time when it's not about, you know, it's not about you all the time. It's about what you're shooting. And when you need it to be about you, do that. Because doing that will help you not only be better on work day, but then also you have new stuff to show. When you do you, I've shown my stuff and it's like, oh, people go, oh, I want to do that, you know, and they'll hire you based on, you know, the thing that you did that was just for your love and your creativity.
Right. It's true.
So this was backstage at Tyra's show. And she did a black model show. And it's really interesting because it was kind of in like this hallway leading up to the stage and it was tight. And I'm like, my back is against the wall. I've got a light over my head. I'm holding a ring flash. And I like to combine ring flash with another light. So it's not so pow ring flashy, but it still gives you that ring flash feeling. And it was just wonderful. And a question was asked earlier, I think you asked Natalie, you know, how did you get them to lock arms like that? This is a good example of models. This was kind of Tyra said, let's do this. And they all fell right in because these are all working top models and they just sort of like knew what to do. And what happens with working models, you just have to have your thing together and be ready to capture it because they're going to do their part. You got to do yours.
And they certainly did. This is a beautiful photo and the energy is unimaginable. The way they're locking hands at the embrace, everyone can see the energy. Like they wanted to be there. You could see that.
And it's funny, somebody has a question here. Can you say a bit more about sharing your photograph with the sitter subject participant? It depends on who you're working with, but I tend to like to share the photo and I'll shoot tethered to a laptop. And in this case, I would show them and when I did my first shot, I showed Tyra and the girls what I was doing. Because the thing with models, and particularly with models, or almost anybody really, but with the models in particular, they're so aware of their posing and what looks good that when you share the image, then you start to you allow them to do the math and do what they do best. And if they know what's going on, you know, it helps. I like to collaborate. I'm not really dictatorial. You know, I never believed in I'm the photographer, it's my way or the highway, and I'm God's gift to the planet just because I take pictures. So, you know, for me, I learned that collaborating, showing the images, and listening to everybody on set. I know it's my job to move the ship forward, but I like for people to speak up. I'd rather speak up and hear your lousy idea than not, because it might not be a lousy idea. If there are 10 people in the room, that's 10 new, fresh points of view. And somebody might come up with something that I didn't think of. And so I let people speak up and I just have to make choices.
So true. Oh, I have something to say. Keith. I was coming from my first booking of the day in New York, and then I was quickly called over to Jersey for the second shoot with Viv. And let me tell you, I didn't know I was coming over that day, but I came over and all I could hear Keith saying is, Natalie's here. Let's not miss the light. And Keith was like, let's go. The light's going down. The light's going down. Talk to us more about it. Do you remember that? You're like,
yeah.
Light.
The sun moves. It's not like when you're in the studio. And every now and then you have hair and makeup people and they're like taking their time to do something. I'm like, look, the light is like right now. Like we have to just do this or it's not going to work or it's going to change because the sun is like, I don't really care what y'all are doing. I'm going to do what I do.
That's right.
You know, and sometimes you will miss magical moments if you're not ready when the light is right. That's why you see some photo shoots, they get up at the crack of dawn because they're trying to catch, you know, that light. Yeah. It's a big deal, man. That light is beautiful.
It is beautiful. And I just had to say that because it's so, it can make or break a photo. And I love that you're passionate about what you do.
And it's hard. You know, I once had a photo shoot years ago. I was doing a fashion shoot and I did all the sets and I went and did Polaroids of everything. By the time they were ready, everything had changed. All the magical light that I had planned was like completely different. You know, I had to pivot and do other things. It can be disheartening.
It is. But that's why the collaboration between everyone on set is so key so that everyone knows what's going on. So, you know, for my case is talk to the client, which is like, let's move. He needs a light, or it's you saying, Nat, make sure that person's ready. You know what I'm saying? It's the conversation piece to say, okay, let's just move it. So
yeah. Well, somebody asked a real challenging question. This is challenging for me. Have you started taking pictures of our world and people during this quarantine?
Ooh.
I have not really. I have left that to the younger photographers who are out there with the protest march. Um, I have a habit of falling into taking things in with my eyes, and I don't always photograph everything. The closest thing that I've come to doing that was I did a beauty inspired story where I cut holes in the masks, and I did a lip story because I had realized that by wearing masks, we were not seeing folks' lips. But other than that, I haven't. And I've been taken to task by one of my closest art friends for not doing that sort of thing. But I knew it just really wasn't, I didn't have that burning passion to go out and record that stuff. And I saw the people doing it, and I liked what they were doing. And I encourage people to photograph your times, but it just wasn't, so it wasn't me. It wasn't what I was doing. But I did do the mask thing. The mask story was at least my dip into, the COVID phenom. And I've done some virtual shooting as well.
Oh, you've done virtual shooting?
Yeah. I had to give it a shot because you never know when you might be called to do it.
True.
So I wanted to familiarize myself with, and I was curious too, like, wow, how is that even possible? Especially when you've been shooting for so long and something completely brand new happens that you don't know anything about. It's like, well, I got to try this. I got to see what this is about. Yeah.
That's when they say when our genius like yourselves and our legends say stay sharpening your tool. That's what it means. Try something that you never know that you'll try or you're curious about, because you never know when you're going to actually be called to do it. So
right.
Shadow boxing. Always ready.
Very cool.
Always ready. So we have another photo, Keith.
This is the oldest photo of the lot. It was actually in Soho in probably 1987, 1988. It's slide film. Chrome film, Push 1600 was the film. And I used it because it was very grainy, very contrasty. And I just loved this moment. There was this yellow wall on one of the streets in Soho that was near the studio that I was working out of at 568 Broadway. And the girl had the yellow shirt and she had the door knockers with the faux Chanel knockoffs added to the door knockers and the gold tooth and the smile. And for me, it was just so beautiful. Her joy and her pride being this dark, dark girl with all this joy. And it's just one of my favorite photographs. I have, I enjoy this photograph so much. I probably enjoy this as much as any advertising photo or any beautiful photo of some model or celebrity that I have. This might be my favorite. And it's simple, but I love it.
Beautiful simplicity. Harry Belafonte.
Yeah, another senior, Harry, yes. You know what's interesting about this shot? We actually put this shot together and we ended up dropping in 2 other people because the cover shot has, I think we used it on the inside of the magazine. There's Zendaya's on one side and Jesse Williams is on the other side of Harry Belafonte. And it was a story about activists, but Harry had to come on a different day. And I took the opportunity to shoot the stuff of Harry by himself. And it's a real simple photograph, but I just enjoyed being in the room with this man. And I was astonished that this is not retouched, and I have some close-ups of him and it's just like, he's so beautiful, even at 92, that it was like, wow, and then to think that you're in the room with somebody who's been in the room with so many great actors and activists. And, this is a man who walked alongside Martin Luther King, he had so much going on that, I didn't want to do too much, it's sort of like that one regal scene, with this backdrop is all that was necessary.
And it speaks volumes. It really does.
I certainly love this photograph. This has been one of my favorites. I always joke that it's been pirated and copied more times than I can count. I remember once I saw some photograph of somebody had pirated it. There was a billboard in Atlanta for some hair salon, and it was like so and so's hair salon right around the corner from Gladys Knight's chicken spot or something like that. I was like,
that
what?
was the word.
Yeah, it's crazy. There have been times where myself and Ariel as the model and her agency had to go after people to either pay or take it down or whatever. It's been that sort of thing. So, but I'm proud of it. They say that copying is the best form of flattery. I don't know if I've probably totally messed that line up, but
if something like that.
And this was a test. This was just a test. Like, it's one of those things where it's part of my process to shoot things on my time and shoot tests. And,
right.
The hairstylist, I mean, that's really her energy coming through there. And, it was a beautiful moment.
But that had to be exhausting, chasing people down to say, hey, that's my art.
It is what it is. I once sued somebody, and that's how I bought my first computer by winning the lawsuit. It's a thing, it's a thing. Less so now in digital. It's like the chasing is like on steroids, but
can't contain the chasing on digital. Yeah.
This is a take from one of my favorite jobs. So here, she's channeling Diane Carroll. We were recreating old Ebony covers.
Wow.
And there was an old Ebony cover of Diane Carroll in a similar outfit, shot in a similar way. I was very happy to get that gig because it told me that the art direction, they knew that I could recreate old photos. And so they knew that I had the skill set to recreate old photos. This is one of the more simpler old photos, but there were others. And she, is just absolutely wonderful. Like, she's such an amazing individual. And it's so amazing when you have these A-list actors, because some of them, like, I remember her, somebody help me, I'm having a brain lapse. I can't think of her name, which is ridiculous. But Samuel L. Jackson was also part of the shoot, and he played Martin Luther King. Okay. And both of them were so prepared. And I learned something during that shoot, that A-list actors tend to be very prepared. In fact, I remember when I was trying to direct Samuel Jackson, and he kind of like, snapped at me, like, because I was like, oh. Yeah, he was like, we're gonna sit down. He's like, I was like, okay, let's do this. We're gonna do it. And he's like, I thought I was doing it. And he goes, I did go to college. I was like, oh, but it was a lesson. I'm like, okay, I know now, whenever I get in the room with somebody like this, they're gonna be prepared. And you gotta slow down a little, Keith, slow down. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can hear it.
I know, it's crazy. That's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
This was for Double XL magazine. For a while I was doing a section called Eye Candy, which was really interesting because I had never really shot, sexy girl TNA stuff until I started doing Eye Candy for Double XL. And it was a lot of fun. It'll destroy a relationship, but that is not that, and it wasn't like I was a player or anything like that. It's because, you're on set with a bunch of people, but it's just, my mate at the time was just like, she didn't, when we got together, I wasn't doing that stuff. And it was kind of a deal breaker for her. So, but that aside, this was similar to the Tyra shot where I'm in a small salon. You'll never know from this photograph. The salon is tiny salon in Brooklyn, and my back is against the wall, and I'm trying my best to squeeze the whole shot in. But I really like the concept of, the girls in their swimsuits. It was a swimsuit story, and the rollers in the hair. It was actually the idea of the photo editor. And I really like doing, carrying out other people's ideas. If you have a concept, it's a lot of fun to try to bring your idea to fruition.
Yes, it is.
It's another one of those Kevin shots. Like, I love the energy of this photograph, like, because he's definitely not funny little guy here. He's like, sex symbol, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to have him look, you know, a leading man.
And he looks the part, and I love the table. I told you earlier that I loved the table, and I asked you where that table's from. And you said,
Yeah, it was a prop from the prop house in LA, and yeah, it's such a iconic looking card table. Like you believe that table's in some smoky room where guys are gambling and smoking cigars and doing what they do, you know. That table is that, you know. It's funny, of course, you can see that right away. You're asking about the table.
oh yeah, 'cause that
Yeah,
you used the
definitely.
part, and because my Jamaican background, I'm gonna say dominoes, a good
Yeah,
domino.
exactly. Exactly.
And your Caribbean roots, so you already know the
Yep.
domino table.
Yeah. Yep.
Love.
Exactly. You know, dominoes, you know, and or, you know, or the more American thing is the playing spades or bid whist, you know.
Yes,
That table's about that life, you know. So yeah.
there is, and at the edge of it, it actually looks like it's been loved by some hardcore card games. So that's
Exactly.
for me. Yeah.
Yep, it looks real. Somebody said it's a James Bond look. Yeah, I totally wanted to go there. I wanted to go James Bond. I wanted people to see Kevin like in a completely different light.
This is awesome. So it looks like we're at the end of our slides.
Okay.
I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today.
Yo, thank you. You're welcome from the bottom of my heart. It's an honor to be honored and to have this conversation with so many wonderful people who take an interest in photography and in me. It's a wonderful. God bless you all. Thank you.
God bless you too. And one day we'll have to link up again. And
Of course.
because this conversation is so good and people want to know a lot more about you, I say, you know, in the future when everything's better and brighter, you come to Boston, we do something, do some sessions, because I'm pretty sure people like photo sessions with you, or they'd like more classes and
Yeah.
you know.
I've been teaching high school virtually, and I'm in the process of putting together a seminar that we're going to start in Dallas. So I'll get out more and share knowledge and teach for sure. And you can always email me, keith@keithmajor.com, if you have questions. And if you want to see better versions of these photographs that are not squashed by the technology of Zoom, just go to keithmajor.com. It's all there, you know.
Yes, yes. And I would love for all of you to repost your favorite moments, repost this event, tell people how great this was, because you know something, we just don't celebrate one another enough. Let's get to know one another, because from what I see, we're all creative people. We have scholars on here, we have actors on here, we have co-founders of jazz organizations on here, Jazz at Lincoln, Jazz Houston's here. We have, you know, Pete, we have people in film, lots of people. You guys are so cool. Like, let's continue this on another level, keep it going. And if you know anyone else that we need to honor, you know how to find me, www.luxshop4u.com. I really want to thank Mr. Pete also, who took so much time out of his day to help me out. Pete, I want you to say something to everyone, please.
Hello, how's everyone doing today?
All right.
What's your background, Pete?
My background is in theater. Theater was the thing that I've done the most and the longest in my life. From that, I got into radio broadcasting, TV broadcasting, and film work eventually. And calling on all those skills, especially TV work, for this show tonight for everyone.
Thank you. And I'd also like to thank my art director, Benji Rich. Mr. Benji Rich does a lot of my art stuff for me and pushes me in the direction I need to go. Thank you to my lash sponsor, Shop Moody. I learned how to put lashes on. So thank you, Shop Moody. Thank you, Ken, Super K, Pauline, Richie, Sister Bev, Father Robbie, and my whole family that keep me going and keep me okay when I need to be on set. So thank you all, and thank you to my lovely husband. Keith, Major. Hey, Keith. Oh, Keith, and the hats. Ladies and gentlemen, Keith has the best hat selection. I thought I was a hat collector. He has the best hat selection.
I'm a Mad Hatter.
He's a Mad Hatter. So thank you, Mad Hatter, for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll work together again soon.
All right.
Repost,
Ciao,
everyone.
ciao.
Repost, and Pete's gonna have it on YouTube, but repost because this was great. You don't have someone speaking to you for over an hour and answering all of your questions. This doesn't happen. So thank you again. God bless you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.